In this module, we'll talk about how you can best engage with recruiters to get to the outcome that you really want. One of the big mistakes I see is that engineers will view the recruiter as an antagonist instead of an ally. And what you should do is view them as someone who might be able to actually help you to get to the destination that you want, to get the offer that you want. So a lot of people will think about a recruiter as, hey, I'm trying to, summit this mountain, or I'm trying to get past this obstacle. And the recruiter is the mountain. I have to conquer them. I have to beat them. They're trying to prevent me from, reaching my goal. That is, in my opinion, the wrong way to think about a recruiter. It will lead to a more strained relationship that won't get you the numbers that you want. The reality is that recruiters can be a huge help. If you think about what is their incentive, what is their job? Their goal is to get qualified people who can make an impact in the company to take the job. So what does that actually mean? It means working with the hiring manager or the leadership of the company to put together a really good job description, to find out candidates where they live on Taro, on LinkedIn, on Indeed, on all these different job platforms. How do I go find candidates who are either actively or passively looking? Many recruiters will often spend some of their time doing phone screens just to make sure that, hey, you have the work authorization, you're available for a job, all these like basic check marks. They do a lot of that work. And then as you go through the whole process, recruiters will often be very much in touch with you. They're going to build that relationship with you to see how you're doing. I remember my Airbnb recruiter, literally every 2 or 3 days, without fail, throughout that whole 3-week process, he was on the phone with me every third day asking me, hey, how do I feel? What could make the experience better? And it was very thoughtful, but it was also a really good way for him to see where my head was at and have a higher chance of converting me for any candidate. And so what does that mean for you? I think what that means is have some empathy for what the recruiter is trying to do. Whenever anything happens about, hey, the recruiter tells you, we got some feedback from the interviewer, or I want to share with you initial numbers, or I want to bring you in for another on-site interview, whatever it might be. The first thing you say is, hey, thank you for doing that. Thanks for doing all that work. And then show some interest in the job, not only in terms of like what they're doing for you, but also the actual job that you're signing up for. Hey, that sounds super interesting. I mean, I think that the work that you all are doing or the impact that the company is having, say it in a way which is genuine, but you want to show that you actually are not treating this recruiter or this job as one of 30 that you're talking to, but one that you actually care about in a deeper way. So here is like a good way and bad way of thinking about how to look at the recruiter relationship. So here's what I would say is like a healthy relationship with the recruiter. One is, a very common question is, what will even be on the interview? I'm interviewing in 2 weeks with Meta. What will be on the interview? That's a great question to ask the recruiter. They have probably the best knowledge about what the hiring manager is looking for, who is on your interview loop. They probably won't reveal everything, but they will most likely be able to tell you, hey, here's the format, here's how many people you're going to be talking to, and here are the types of questions. And in some cases, the company or the recruiter may even have tips of what to study, what concepts to review. Another sign of a really strong recruiter relationship is that they are advocating for you on internal compensation. So if the recruiter really feels like, hey, we can close this candidate really cares about us and they want to come work here, they can go to bat for you. They can go into the hiring manager or compensation committee room and say, I think that if we meet them here, they will sign the offer. So you want the recruiter to believe that, and you want to give the recruiter the ammunition needed so they can make the argument for you. But there are a couple of things you should be aware of or cognizant of that are non-goals of the recruiter relationship. Like, these are things that you should not expect. So first of all is unbiased information about which company to join. So obviously the recruiter wants you to join the company they're working at. And so if you tell them, hey, I have an offer here or an offer here or an offer at a startup, which one do you think is the best? Obviously they're going to tell you their company is good and they'll sell you on the company. And so you should not look to them to be an unbiased source of information. Another thing is you should not expect that the recruiter will understand the technical details of what exactly it is that you're doing or what you're offering. Usually recruiters are not going to be technical, and so they're going to be working with the hiring manager and obviously the interview panel to evaluate your technical competency. And that means that if there is something unique technically that you can bring to the table, you can explain to the recruiter, but more importantly, you want to explain that to the technical folks, the hiring manager, the engineers on the team, who can understand and evaluate why that would be so valuable. The other thing worth commenting on with recruiters is that usually the recruiter will not be able to sway the decision maker on whether to give you an offer or not. But once it's been decided that we want to give this candidate an offer, they are able to have a good amount of leverage on how aggressively should we go after this candidate. So that's why having a really good relationship with the recruiter is very important. One more thing I want to mention is the recruiter function within the company. Contrasting that to another job function, I would argue that the recruiter function is way more aligned with you as a candidate compared to a lot of other functions, which is kind of sad. But the argument I'm making is that HR, human resources at the company, really does not have your interest at heart. So if you go into the company and you have a complaint about whatever issue is happening in your job, the HR team, their number one priority is how can we make sure that the company is continuing to build and execute without getting sued. They just want you to get out or shut up so you can do the actual work. They don't really want to deal with any complaints about harassment. You can see the data on this again and again and again. HR is not really there to help you. On the other hand, I would say recruiters, even though they sometimes get mixed up with HR, they're quite different in that they really do want to bring in high quality people into the company. And there's a mutual benefit there for you as a candidate and the recruiter to make sure that you're both working in the same direction. The last thing worth commenting on is that there are two very different types of recruiters, and you should be aware of which one you're dealing with because the way you operate or the way you manage that relationship might differ. So the first type, which is way more common among larger companies that have enough hiring needs, is to have a full in-house recruiter. This is someone who is fully employed by the company. They're only working for that company. And because they have a longer term view of the company's health and the incentives are much more aligned with the company, they're going to be much less transactional. There's way more trust with the candidate and company, and they don't necessarily get a direct payout just because you took the job. They're going to be evaluated holistically among how the whole recruiting team is functioning or how much are they sourcing candidates and talking to candidates. On the other hand, contract or agency recruiters are going to be external companies or individuals who are paid just to fill positions. So their job ends when they have a butt in the seat. When they have hired someone and they take the job, they get paid and they leave. And so the result is that they are much more transactional. All they really care about is they want to get a qualified candidate to clear the interview and then take the job. And they earn a commission based off of that. And these contract agencies, they might be working with multiple companies all at once. And so the amount of patience and the amount of time you can take with an in-house recruiter is going to be a lot higher compared to a contract recruiter. Just keep that in mind and figure out, what kind of recruiter are you dealing with and what are their incentives and how does that maybe change how you operate.